Okay, so let's talk about quizzes on Schoology. The first thing I do want to talk about before we get to anything else is the use of question banks when it comes to Schoology and making quizzes. What you can do is if you have a collection of questions, say a collection of grammar questions or a collection of warm-up questions that you want to continually reuse throughout the year, a question bank is really great because you can just pick and pull from your question banks the different types of questions that you want for any quiz. I use it as a collection of questions that I want to use for my final in the end. So any quizzes, I can save those questions from my quizzes to my question bank to then reuse in my final exam. So I always keep my question banks. It's going to be in my resources, and I keep it in my personal resources, and I created a collection of question banks. To add a collection, you would just click the Add Collection box. I already have one for my question banks, and these are all of my question banks. Because I teach English, all of my question banks have to do with literature. I have The Fall of the House of Usher, The Hunger Games, A Midsummer Night's Dream. I could have a grammar folder if I wanted to. And basically within these different question banks, I have all of the questions that I have ever asked my students on a quiz in here that I can then just pick and choose to create my final. I don't even have to assign it as a quiz right now. I can just think of a question that I will eventually want to ask, and I can add the question here if I wanted to. So a question bank is a really good resource, and it's just something to think about when you're getting ready to make your quizzes. To make the quiz itself, I want to go into the class that I want the quiz for. And as in anything with Schoology, the Add Materials button is your best friend. I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to click Add Test or Quiz. It always shows up as a green puzzle piece. I'm going to give the quiz a name. Let's call it Test. I'm going to give it a due date, and I'm going to give it a point value. I'm going to give it a category. You are going to, I don't have any categories for this, so I want to create a new one, and I'm going to call it Quizzes. And that's all I need to do for that. I'm going to click Create, and it's going to take me to the quiz editor. So the toolbar up at the top is how you navigate through the different options that you can use for settings. But to make the quiz itself, I'm going to click Add Question, and I have all of these different options. I have true or false questions, multiple choice, ordering, where you sequence events, short answer essay question, which, by the way, everything else on this list besides short answer essay questions are automatically graded. However, you will have to grade the short answer essay questions on your own. Fill in the blank, matching. I could choose questions from a question bank, or I can import my test or quiz. I haven't really messed with this option. I prefer to just make the quiz in Schoology. So let's start off with an easy one, true or false. And I'm going to say the sky is blue. True or false. I can also make sure that depending on my question, I can change the text for true or false. Say I wanted them to tell me if this was a fact or an opinion, or if something happened before or after an event. I can do that as well. I'm going to say what the correct answer is. In this case, it is true. I could require a correction if it's false, but I normally just leave that alone. A subjective question means that it's not graded on its own if you don't wish. If you wish to grade it yourself, you can click that. You can choose to make it a timed question, and you choose a point value. I'm going to go ahead and leave this with 10 points. Down here you have aligning learning objectives. That's only if you want to add a standard to different questions. And I'm going to go ahead and create the question. So there's one, and up here I see that I have one question so far worth 10 points. As I add questions, this would also change to reflect everything else. So let's add a multiple choice question next, because I can add different kinds. And let's write, who wrote Romeo and Juliet? And because it's a rich text editor up here, I can also make sure that everything is correct. I can italicize titles. I could add in bullet points. I can add in different indents. I can add a link if I want them to go to a link. I could add in a picture if I wanted a picture. I could add in a YouTube video if I wanted a YouTube video, something from my Google Drive. Pretty much the sky's the limit. It's pretty awesome. Also in here is what we call tooltip. Tooltip is really great if you highlight anything in a question and then you go to tooltip. You can give an alternate definition. So a play written by William Shakespeare, but I don't really want to put William Shakespeare right now. But if you have your EL students who need a little bit of help now and then, when they hover over it, they can see the alternative definition for them, which is really great. And then I go to my choices. So I'm going to give in all my choices. And then I'm going to, I can add more choices if I wish. I could add up to 15 extra blanks, and I can make sure that I put the correct answer. And I could even make multiple right, which is why you can have so many different responses. I don't need all those different responses, so I'm going to click Remove Blanks. Make sure I have the correct answer chosen. I always like to randomize my choices. That way no student has the same exact order of answers. You can allow partial credit if it is a multiple right answer, and a timed question again if you wish, and the point value. Create question. I'm going to add a question, and then I can move into ordering, which is sequencing of events. So say, because I teach English, I want to please order the events of a plot. And then I'm going to give my choices. Now, when you are putting something in order, already put it in order here. It will randomize the choices for you by itself later on. So go ahead and start off with your first one. And then I need to add one more blank because I have 5. So it's already in order. Allowing partial credit on this one means that they have to have a minimum continuous sequence. So they have to have 2 in a row in order to get credit for one of those. So that's the lowest number that you can go. So you can at least have them have partial credit. And again, you can set it as a timed question or not. I'm just going to take that off for now because I don't need it. And then 10 points. I'm going to go ahead and create the question. And again, you can see over here, now my quiz is worth 30 points. I can add in 2 more questions. So let's go to short answer essay questions. This means I'd have to grade it myself. So what is your favorite movie? And I can allow a character limit, which means they can limit their responses. I can allow a rich text answer, which means they would have this bar up here if you need them to answer it like that. You can allow video or audio answers, and you can make it a timed question. You can even add in a rubric to make for easier grading, but I always leave that up to me and the type of question that I'm answering. We're going to go ahead and make that 10 points. Create the question, and then finally I'm going to add one more so I can show you what it's like, the fill in the blank. Fill in the blank is a little bit interesting. So let's say I wanted them to finish this phrase. Twinkle, twinkle, little. And then I'd want them to put star. Normally, when people make a fill in the blank, they put in a couple of lines like that. You can't do that because it gives so many blanks for every underscore that you put. What you want to do is make sure that you have 1 underscore for each blank answer. You see? And then another blank if I needed it. But I don't need another blank, so I'm just going to leave it at 1. You're going to fill in, once it's set up for you, the correct answer, star. And you can add an answer if you wish. Say they has an alternate spelling, you can put that. You can allow partial credit. You can put in a word bank. You can make it case sensitive. I always leave that off though because that's just asking for trouble. And a timed question. I'm going to make it 10 points. And we'll go. So right now I have 5 questions worth 50 points. So now I'm going to move on to the settings. By the way, if I wanted to save any of these questions to my question bank, I can go to options up here and I could say add questions to bank, and I could add all of those questions to a new question bank if I wished. I'm going to go to the settings button, and here is really important. If you notice up here, it says unavailable. Schoology automatically defaults every quiz to unavailable, meaning that the students can see that there is a quiz, but they cannot take it. They cannot see any of the questions. You have to make it available to them. So how you would make it available is I say, okay, go ahead and click on the link, and then when I tell you to, refresh your page and begin the quiz. And before they refresh, I would say allow attempts. You could also allow attempts till, set up a whole date range, or make it unavailable. So I'm going to say allow attempts. I don't really want a time limit on this one, but you could have a time limit if you wish. How many times they can attempt it, I'm going to say 1 time for this one. I do want to randomize the order, so that way it negates cheating to a certain extent. I want my students to be able to review the questions. I always make it resumable. That way, in case one of them gets kicked off the computer unexpectedly, they can just go back and resume. And I want them to see what their scores are once I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and save changes, and now that quiz is available for your students. I'm going to go ahead and take it on a student version, and I'll show you what the results look like when I'm done. Okay, so once my students have taken the quiz, I always get a notification saying 1 pending review or test quiz submission. I could go into the test itself and go to results, or I can just click here and it'll take me to the same place. So I was the only one to take this, and so I can see a lot of different information here. I could see how many submissions there are and how many attempts there were, a timestamp, how much they would get out of the total points, but because it's pending a review for that 1 short answer essay question, I have to go in and review that. If you want to just look at that 1 question, short answer question, and just grade all the short answer questions at one time, it's really great to go view by question. You can go ahead and find that question, and then you can view the responses there and grade it all in one go. Or you can just grade it by student and view their attempt. I'm going to go and click the gear icon and say view or edit. If a student accidentally submits it, you can unsubmit it for them and they could go in and resubmit. I'm going to click view and edit, and I can see here which ones they got right and which ones they got wrong, marked by red or marked by green, as well as what the true answer was. And now I need to go ahead and whenever there's a star over the score, that means I need to grade it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that so I can give it a grade. If this was worth 10 points, they gave me a good response, I'm going to give them 10, and I'm going to click Save Changes. And so now, there's the saved score. I can go back to just the main results page, and I can see now I got a 30 out of 50. All I need to do now is go to the gradebook, sync that score, and it would go into PowerSchool. There's lots of different things that you can do with quizzes on Schoology, and it's a pretty awesome tool.